What's the big idea?
Did you clear space?
Yes, I did.
All right.
We are clear. We are clear. All right.
Very good. All right.
We're here for another episode of Volleyballology. I am Zuby.
And I'm Erik.
And I am Meach.
Sounds good.
And yeah, you guys are all good?
I believe so.
Yeah. How's life? Everything's interesting? Everything's good?
Everything's good.
Yeah. Do we want to get into our personal lives on the show? No.
Maybe a later time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Meach, do you want to tell about that?
No, don't.
That rash?
No, don't.
The rash.
Don't.
Come on. Tell them about the rash.
No.
All right.
Maybe when it clears up.
The rash that keeps on giving.
Anyway, just if everybody, if you're not sure, I mean, I guess if you're curious, just think portobello mushroom. No, I'll leave it at that.
What?
Sorry. Anyway,
the big
speaking
one, really flat.
What?
I thought you were more like a cremini.
Oh, okay. You've seen it? I haven't seen it. Okay. Anyway, so we're here now. Today's episode is a special one, near and dear to our hearts, because it's about statistics, and we've been living in an age of statistics, obviously, the past couple of years. And so today's show, we want to talk about statistics as it pertains to volleyball, and are we using too many stats, and are stats a good thing? When can stats be a good thing, and when can stats be a bad thing? So that's the topic today. The problem with statistics or stats. Meach, open it up.
Well, I think that there are times, like you said, that stats can be good and stats can be bad. And we'll explore that a little bit, especially in the practice.
Are you doing another intro? It sounds like you're doing another intro.
He is doing another intro.
I already did the intro.
Yeah.
Why can't he do one?
He can do an intro, but then it's like I'm going to edit it out later. So because my intro is like better.
More editing for you.
That's the goal.
Just throw it back at him, Meach. What are the good things about stats, Zuby?
What are the good things about stats?
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay. So I'm glad you asked, Erik. First of all, before we get too far into it, I'm not wearing a hat this episode because a lot of people wrote in, very upset that I covered my hair last time.
Oh.
So I just want
Okay.
like a lot of people wrote in, like letters.
Letters. Yeah.
Yes. They don't even know where you are.
Yeah, they don't. That's the weird thing. That's the weird thing. That's what I said.
Did owls
right.
drop them off? Or?
Yeah, no, but so I got a nice haircut too, and you guys didn't notice or say anything about my haircut, and I was just wondering, is everything okay with you guys? Because normally,
Oh yeah, it's a
Hey.
little.
it's very weird that you didn't.
We don't
comment.
want to hurt you. Because we're not like that.
Okay.
Did you diet too?
You're fired. What?
Okay.
Did I diet? Did I
Yeah.
diet? Am
Yeah.
I on a diet or did I dye my hair?
Both.
I don't dye my hair.
Hmm.
My hair. I
And
know.
the other question that everybody wants to know.
Well, I'm always on a diet. No, I don't believe in dieting. I think the diets are not. They're bound for failure.
But you have to eat a diet.
Oh yes, we all have a diet. You're right. I don't want to fall into that trap. But the whole idea of going on a diet is such a. Anyway, don't get me started on that. Anyway,
I guess that expression is a contradiction.
what is?
Going on a diet.
Yeah, going on a diet is such a weird term. Only born in the 80s, right? That whole
Mhm.
idea, 70s, 80s, people are like going on a diet.
If you were to diet,
Mm-hmm.
which one would you use?
Which one would I use?
Yes.
If I were going on a diet, then I would just use the cave. I mean, I would just eat like they did in the old days, veggies, meats, and fruits. What are you laughing at that? The way I said it. The way I said fruits aggressively.
Mushrooms too.
Mushrooms too.
Mm.
Safe mushrooms though. I'm not into your crazy hot. I'm not into your drug mushrooms, Erik. This is a family show. Come on.
Wow.
I mean, hey, one time I had
because my hat is backwards.
I had
doesn't
cream of
mean-
mushroom soup once. High for a week.
Oh,
Oh my
Nice.
goodness.
High for a week. Anyway, let's get back to this because people are waiting.
they're
for
already
us.
turning this off.
They're turning the station. Yes. Okay. So stats. So I went to a seminar on stats. This is what I want to open up with. I saw a professional statistician give a presentation to a school board. And I spoke with him afterwards, and he said, "Oh, well, he said this to the group too." And I spoke with him afterwards too. He said the best. Like, I learned so much that day, and one of the things he said was that nobody should ever draw conclusions from a statistic. A statistic is just a number, and the mistake people make is they think they have the right reason for the number, or that they think that number means something on its own, and they jump to conclusions without understanding that stats are not. You can take any stat and make it prove almost any point you want. That's what he was getting at. And a real statistician would never do that. And it's kind of funny because what we've been through the past couple of years.
That's what we're seeing right now. Yeah.
Yeah, we're seeing in the world that,
Yeah.
People are using stats to say things and coming to conclusions. And that's not a logical thing. So I think in volleyball, the same thing's happening. I think coaches are using statistics too much now, and that they believe that they have the information that stat is telling them. And I can get into that later, but it's telling them, I think, too much. So, I mean, if you want, Eric, you want to start with maybe something you had, but that's the blurb I want to say off the top, that, any statistician will tell you that you can't look at a number and get the whole story.
Yeah. Well, kind of going off of what we were talking about was like in terms of dieting, like stats, specifically like counting calories. Like I've been messing around with nutrition for more than 10 years, right? Like in good ways and bad ways, but going through that roller coaster, I think I've learned quite a lot through experience, right? But in terms of like if you wanted to lose calories, right? We know that if you expend more calories than you eat, you're likely going to lose weight, right? I'm sure there are some unique things regarding that, nuances on the types of foods and stuff like that. Stress, how you're sleeping. Of course, there's a whole bubble around it, right? But I think at the core of that, we can kind of vaguely agree. Well, not vaguely, but overall, if you burn more calories than you eat, you're probably going to lose some fat, because that's the whole purpose of fat. It's to, it's our evolutionary thing. It helps us get through times of starvation, right?
And fat's not a bad thing.
And fat's not a bad thing, right? And so, and so living a life where you are counting each calorie, I've tried it. It's awkward. It's not for me necessarily. And I don't necessarily think it is, I don't believe it is necessary, because I think you have an internal calorie counter inside your body, which kind of gives you feedback through hormones or whatever. And it gives you signals in your brain. It's like, oh man, like, we are bagged right now. And then you can probably be like, oh, it's probably because I didn't eat anything all day, right? So I think we have that inside of us. But specifically, if you're making your meals and you're just going through your phone, how many calories is this? How many calories? So I've done it before. I think it's worthwhile for experimentation. And if that's something you're on right now, like I'm not saying stop, do it, or like there's always, you'll learn from whatever you do, right? Whether it's a good idea or a bad idea. But nitpicking, I just don't think it's enjoyable.
Do you think there's like over tracking of things maybe today?
Yeah, I definitely think so. Yeah.
Meach, anything?
Nothing. I don't use them.
Why don't you use them? Because I'm kind of, we're a little old school that way. Why don't you use the tracking things?
Because I believe instinct is better. What you do, you measure your own paces. I guess in terms of dieting, you measure your own paces. You go by instinct. You see what you feel does best. In that terms, I think stats are useless because everybody does their own thing. That's about it.
Yeah, I think, that's my thing too. I think that we as a society, the more we rely on tech and data, and Erik and I were talking about this earlier this week, like the more we rely on the digital number, printout, stat on the paper, whatever, the less we are teaching our bodies to feel and our minds to feel.
Yeah.
And I was saying this to Erik too, like, the whole idea of Marshall McLuhan said that the medium is the message, right? Remember that line?
Yep.
And I think that the more we go into data, the more they want us. I mean, corporations want us to rely on our watch to tell us if we're sleeping well.
Right. Yeah.
They want us to rely on our watch to see if we're walking enough. Well, how about you learn what your body feels? Like, how about you? The more we do that, the less we're able to gauge, like, oh, I'm grumpy today. I haven't walked enough. I'm grumpy today. I haven't worked out. Or I'm grumpy today. Or I'm not sleeping well. I didn't do enough. I didn't get enough outdoor time, fresh air. If we're always checking a watch or a number or a digital readout of that, I think we're literally, the message we're getting sent is the tech has the answer, not you. Don't you think anymore.
We are being teed up to be guided along a line like that. You're giving over part of your own decision-making process
and feel,
right?
One of the biggest things, like, one of the biggest things that came out of the past 2 years in the pandemic, and we talked about this a lot, like, okay, you might feel well, but you're sick. Like, I don't, that to me is the evolution of where the data culture goes, where, the test says you're sick, not your feeling. And of course there are illnesses that we need to detect, more serious, like, you might not know you have a serious illness, of course. Mm-hmm. But that's not really what the heart of the message was the last couple of years. It was about shutting off your own instincts, shutting off your own feelers, changing the things you know. And I think that volleyball, just to bring it back to that too, I think that a lot of coaches are losing the feel for what they're seeing out there. And they'll ask for readouts on stats rather than looking at maybe what led to that stat. One of my favorite ones, like, we'll get into examples, I guess, of volleyball now, is like, when a coach says something like, oh, you passed at a very low percentage last game, right? Mm-hmm. But there's no analysis of who was the server coming up against that player's passing. You know what I mean?
Right.
Was there a misstep?
Yeah.
Were players not spaced out well? Does another player on the team have an issue of maybe leaning into a lane that's not theirs, or taking, that dreaded step that players make around the passer?
Yeah.
The player will get labeled with the shank, but somebody moved their foot in front of them.
And
that's all it takes, right?
That is the eternal caveat with stats, is that there are numerous variables, right?
Yep.
And it can, at least in the drug industry, it'll work a little bit better because we're talking about a specific molecule. So there's like the gold standard is, what do they call it? Randomized double-blind controlled test or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that is, but again, there are innumerable variables because it's always in a human organism or an organism like an animal or a human, and then their whole health profile.
Exactly.
Right?
There's variables in that too. That's why people don't, like, we talked about studies. I can make a study to say anything I want if I want to sell a drug. So I went to another amazing presentation when I was teaching. I was counseling, and I went to an eating disorder seminar presented by two massive children's hospitals, world renowned. Both of them were the chairs of eating disorders at both clinics. Mm-hmm. And I'll never forget one of the presenters. They said that, this is about maybe 10 years ago, maybe no, less than 10 years ago, 6 or 7 years ago. And she said that, people need to understand that how we get funding for our issues is to make everything seem like an emergency. Mm-hmm. So the only way you're going to get funding for your project is if you make the stats seem terrifying, right? And so she also said that, the statistics are, so she was talking about body mass index and that whole problem, and BMI, which a lot of people hate. And body mass index basically tells you that, here's what an obese person is, here's an overweight person. If you're overweight, you're obese, here's underweight, and then there's the ideal body mass index. And the funny thing is that the people with the overweight, who are declared overweight by BMI status, have the longest life expectancy than the ideal BMI weight. And these statistics are like toxic because they give people stress. They cause people more problems when they hear their doctor says they're overweight. Mm-hmm. It was a fascinating talk on just how statistics are, so one thing that I've always had this, so I teach philosophy and I always talk to kids about this too. Whenever they show you like a 30% increase in something or like a 20%, I'll always ask to see the number, because that number could be a 30% increase, could be like 0.0001 to 0.0003. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's that crazy. Like those numbers are minuscule. And one of my favorite ones, I remember this was happening like in real time in our lives. My favorite stat that they'd throw on the headline that they would terrify everybody with was the connection between gum disease and heart disease. They're like 3 times more likely.
Right,
three
right.
times. First of all, what's 3 times?
Funny one.
What's 3 times, right? Again,
Right.
is it 0.00001 to
Yes,
0.0?
yeah.
That's 3 times more. But my favorite was that you would hear parents then telling their kids, you got to brush your teeth or you're going to have a heart attack. Like, no. Wow. So like they're not even considering, okay, let's see, what commonalities could there be? So let's suppose there is a correlation, right? Not causation. That's
Yeah.
basically what we're talking about here. Everybody was assuming causation when really it's correlation, maybe. I used to say, so I would talk to my philosophy class about the stat. I used to laugh about it because it would show up on the news tickers all the time, and parents would tell their kids to brush their teeth or they're going to have a heart attack. So I said, so what could be the issue? What could maybe there be a connection? First of all, let's look at the number. What if it's this? And you find out it's minuscule, just a headline, someone trying to get a study funded. Okay.
Yeah.
But if you do look into it, I mean, maybe someone who doesn't take care of their teeth doesn't take care of their body. Maybe they're not eating well. Maybe they don't brush their teeth. Maybe that same person doesn't brush their teeth, isn't taking care of everything else. Maybe they eat like crap. Maybe they don't exercise, right?
Yeah, maybe they have a certain amount of sugar. Maybe they have a certain amount of acidity in their diet.
Yeah, it's not just the better brush your teeth thing. There's a lifestyle connection probably in this. If there's even a connection, that's the thing. The connection is so minuscule, it's not even worth it unless you're someone trying to get some funding for a project.
Right. Stats is always associated with the science and the scientific method. And the purpose of that is to have a hypothesis and draw a conclusion. So if you are a volleyball coach and you're drawing stats, well, are you running a proper study when you are tracking in practice or in games the passing efficiency or efficacy, I guess, of your players, right? And then, because if you're just writing, oh, that's a 1, that's a 3, that's a 2, well, like you said, you're not taking into consideration the serve and all that stuff. Like it's stats collection comes from the scientific method, and that needs to be encompassed in its entirety to keep the integrity of it. Because
that's a great point.
Science, it is a good thing, right? We like penicillin, and like we
I'm gonna quote that. Science is a good thing, like penicillin.
Okay, that's pretty bad.
No, but that's good. Like your Buddhist comment.
Yeah.
I think that even if you have all of the same elements have to be considered. Let's say, for example, a player is taking serves, he's passing. The only way you can evaluate that really is if everybody is served against a machine.
Yeah.
Right?
Or everybody comes up
serve.
against your best server or something. Yeah, it's just so the killer thing for this and this issue, the problem with stats. So one, I guess the bottom line is we want to tell coaches that statistics aren't telling you the whole picture. So like another example is like, let's suppose your setter has a bunch of setting errors. Now, what about if the passing isn't good for the setter? Is someone watching how good the pass is and how good the set is? Is someone looking at, are other players sometimes stepping for that ball? Setters sometimes setters don't even tell their coaches this because they don't even know what happened. I see all the time the middle tries to go set the ball sometime, and that affects the setter's set. So unless, like Erik said,
that step to fake them out.
That's just like the player who tries to step in your way by accident. If you're passing and can make you shank the ball.
Yeah.
It happened to me last night in a game. Player took one flinch, and I think I did to someone else. you know that you do. That one step is.
You need to get used to that though, because that's just normal.
It is, but what I'm saying though is that the coach uses that to make real decisions. So what you said about the scientific method is the coach is not understanding variables. I frequently see coaches, for example, yell at the wrong player. Like they yell at the setter when they didn't see that the middle went to go set the ball, and that's why the setter didn't get in there in time because the middle blocked their path, right? Or they yell at the setter or they yell at the hitter when the set was way too far inside. How many times have we seen that? Where the coach blames the hitter for not doing the right, making the right play, but they don't know the set was awful. The set was way too far in or way too far out, or So I mean, then we tell players to wait and obviously make every hit better, but they don't. I don't think enough coaches are qualified to see the variables that are in stats. And again, so in games, we're not saying don't use stats in games. They are a tool, and they are one more tool that I think coaches should have at their disposal. And it's great to watch video. But I see a lot of coaches using stats who don't know enough about the game to understand what's going into those stats. And the worst thing, remember we talked about this?
Mm-hmm.
The real, I'm going to say, toxic thing in volleyball is that coaches are using stats in practice to guide or inform who plays in games.
Mm-hmm.
Discuss.
Mm-hmm. Well, practice versus game time, you're not even factoring in fatigue. That's a big thing because some players are hyped in the game. Some players are not hyped in practice.
The intensity kind of
The
thing.
intensity could be a factor that controls that.
Okay.
Which
Erik?
is the coach's responsibility. I mean, yeah, I've never been on a team where we took, at least I wasn't aware, right?
No,
Like
they didn't do it. They didn't do it back then.
Yeah.
It's a new thing that they learned on social media.
And I don't know, it just seems like we can draw a parallel between a volleyball team and an organism or a human body. Like if you are, like you're saying, that how is that setter specifically setting with regard when passes are coming off this one passer and specifically, right? So
like all connected.
Yeah, exactly. So you need to treat everything together. And just like in the human body, if you're just treating symptoms, they're showing this, therefore we need to give them this treatment for it. Well, what is the cause of that, right? So it's
more complicated.
Yeah,
it's
so
not, you put the Band-Aid on the issue here, but it's really being caused by something else.
it's myopic, right?
Yep.
So
stats in practice for you, what's your biggest gripe with it?
well, so if we were in a practice, what Meach just said is definitely true for me. It was difficult for me to get that intensity. For whatever reason in a game, I would typically play better.
Yes.
Just 10% or something, right?
Yep.
So if I had a coach approach me after practice and be like, "Hey man, you passed 2 balls all night long," I would say okay, and then I would just wait for them to follow up on that. So you're gonna help me fix it, or like what pass was getting me the most? Was it like my high left side? Was it when I was stepping in on my right side?
They probably didn't even notice.
That's
yeah,
right.
and so so
I'll get back to you. Yeah.
I wouldn't know. I would just be like, okay.
What do you think was the problem?
Yeah.
Okay, so the lack of feedback. Yeah, but so what they would do
I'm
is they
okay
would,
with it.
yeah.
I would just because I want to learn. So just give me something.
But imagine if they benched you because of it. Because that's what's happening now. They're benching players because, you're not passing well enough in practice, so you're not going to start, okay?
I guess it would make me try harder in practice to pass better.
Okay.
It would,
Yep.
if I didn't know my coach that well, and that's just the way it was, for sure.
And what if it was your serve? What if you were missing your serve in practice? What would that make you do?
Yeah, right.
What would it make you do? If you're young, let's suppose you're 14-year-old Erik, okay? And your coach says, okay.
I don't agree with it, but there is an element that would make me try to improve, right?
What do you mean improve? What's improvement to a player at age 14?
Well, exactly. It depends on the criterion that they're giving me. If they're not being specific, like we're looking for an aggressive serve that just goes over the net.
No, that's not what it is. You know what they're saying. They're
saying, I know what you're alluding to. It's going to make me fail more, or it's going to end up making me serve lollipops.
Yes.
Right?
See, that's what it does. So coaches, if you're keeping stats in practice, you are basically telling your players to not take risk. Young players. These are not 28-year-old players. These are 14-year-old kids, 15-year-old kids, 16-year-old kids who are maybe developing a new skill. And you're telling them, I'm going to punish you for making mistakes.
Because the implication is always success. It's not like this is the outcome and this is the outcome and they're both successes. It's like this happened, that's a success, or this happens, that's a failure.
Yeah,
right?
and the idea is you're not going to play. I've heard coaches say this to players. You're not going to play because you missed too many serves last practice. Or you're not going to play because you didn't pass well in practice. And I'm just saying to that coach, you better be able to tell that kid how many times the best server on the team served them if they shanked it. And you better be able to tell that kid, well, basically you are telling that kid, don't take any risks. Don't take
Yeah.
any risks in practice. So, that spin serve you're working on, that jump float you're working on, forget it. that hit you're going to try to swing line tonight, forget it.
What if the kid was up all night doing homework and stuff, or like?
Well, there's that's a separate issue.
Yeah.
Separate issue, is sort of what Meach was talking about, the factors that go into. But just from the sheer lack of understanding that you are telling your players to play safe, we talked about this. And we're going to do a show on the dream season, like what would happen in a dream scenario where a coach from start to finish. But we said this in the Good Coach, Bad Coach. Your goal is to have your players play free, right? And practice is where they learn to play free. And the goal is to eliminate fear of errors. But you are telling them, now you're practicing, that safe space where you could go and practice and swing hard and aim for corners and try to aim for line when there's no space. Those times when that's the time when players first learn. I think all of us probably had our first really great serve in a practice. We all had our first great, oh wow, I've never tried a cut shot that hard before. You do that in practice. And so for these coaches, they're basically stifling that area. You can still have an intense practice. You can still measure. I think you still have goals in your drills, of course, to keep intensity up. Like, winner does this, loser does that, within reason. Some coaches are going crazy with that stuff too. But have a goal and a target, make it competitive. But to keep a stat in practice, to go and that, just telling your players, okay, I'm starting the safe six. The safest six here, they get to play.
That's right.
The most boring six here, they get to play.
That's right.
Was this a real Bruce Lee quote? He said, "I don't fear the man who does 10,000 kicks. I fear the man who does one perfect kick 10,000 times," or something. Is that it?
I think Amici said that.
What?
I'm a big Bruce Lee fan.
What I mean
That doesn't
by
make any
though,
sense. I know I was trying to give you the quote, and you just said I'm a big Bruce Lee fan. No, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, well, it doesn't make sense. When you
I was
said.
trying to attribute the quote. Remember how you attributed what did you do last episode? You attributed the quote from who was it?
John Tesh.
Yeah, but who was Benjamin Franklin?
Yeah, he was telling a story, and you cut him off because you were so excited.
He was telling a story, or you were telling
He
a story?
was telling a story. You were so excited, you cut him off.
What story were you telling?
He was telling a story about John Tesh and this place. he
Oh,
was at.
last episode.
Uh-huh.
Oh, sorry. Join us in the
Ben
future,
Franklin.
Eric.
What, you just brought up the past.
I just brought up the past because Meach said that he's a big. I tried to give Meach credit for a quote,
But that wasn't mine. I'm not being kicked at, or I don't fear.
I know it wasn't your quote. I was making a joke, and you're like, "I'm a big Bruce Lee fan." That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, because it makes sense to say I wasn't quoting that. It wasn't. I know you were
didn't
trying to
quote
give it to me, but
It was a joke. It was a joke, and you ruined it.
Maybe it was poorly delivered.
Maybe you guys should go to the office.
go there right now.
Sorry, Eric. I think you were cut off. You were quoting Bruce Lee with the story about what did he say? I think he said that. I think he did say that.
Yeah, I don't. Maybe. So I don't fear the man who does 10,000 kicks. I fear the man who does one kick 10,000 times. So
Yeah, I think I heard that.
And all I mean is that when you're in a high pressure situation, when you're in a game,
I think Bruce Lee meant he fears getting kicked 10,000 times in a row.
probably,
by the same guy.
probably.
That would also suck.
But
And why he's doing that.
Why didn't he stop? I'm already dead.
When you go back to the service line, right, at 24-23, right, and you're gonna toss up a spinner, and it's a big match. If you don't feel any nervousness, then good on you, because that's amazing.
Yes.
In my experience, I've definitely been in that situation. I'm like, wow, this is going to be a big serve, like pressure, right?
But you're hyped, not nervous.
Yeah, well, and I have been, and I have definitely been more nervous than hyped, and the more I played, I would be more hyped, less nervous. But what I mean is that in that moment, I rely on the repetitions that I've done of that serve, because all you can do is just try to free your mind, just try to let all that stuff is there, all that pressure. All you can do is just try to get back to that muscle memory of all those serves you've done. And most those are going to come from practice, right? And if you're not able to get in those quality serves, and they're going to suck. They're going to go out the back. They're going to go in the net, whatever. But then it builds up.
Speak for yourself.
Yeah. Well, I will. Yeah. And so that's what I mean is that you will rely, if you can get the more good quality serves you can get in, and it'll take a while to get there. That's going to, in my opinion, will help you in those big matches. But if you're,
So you got to take the risk in practice.
That's
what you're saying.
what I'm trying to say. Yeah. If you're just like getting the
I was
ball
just hoping
over.
you'd friggin' say it.
Sorry, yeah.
What do you guys think of this? If anything, making the players in a coach situation take effort as a statistics, if anything. Like how many efforts were they able to make instead of just the serves? Because, I mean, the lollipop is the result of, just serving it over. But the efforts, that's what would get you, more playing time, more game time.
You mean
things like
aggressive play, like
Yeah.
giving kids credit for aggressive play.
Aggressive
100%.
I think effort's a good way to say it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, like when someone's trying hard, you can tell in practice.
Yeah, but I like going for it too. Like, what I mean?
I know what
I
you
think you're
mean.
mixing that in a bit, right? Like,
Yep.
Yeah.
like going for it, like
Yeah.
aggressive play.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Whether
100%.
it in the serving situation, whether it goes over or not,
Yes.
this is the kind of thing that makes it a more valuable. I hate to call it stat, but
No,
statistic.
I know. I'm telling you, listen. So again, not to go on about my own kids, but my daughter started spin serving hard at a young age. Okay, and I remember one time they were down like 4 points. She goes back. It's like 24-20. She spin serves to get it to 24 all, and then she spin serves to get it to. They take a timeout. She comes out, spin serves 25-24, and then the coach inexplicably from the sideline says to her 80%. 80%. This is the thing. This is the thing they yell now. Coaches yell 80%. 80%. Meaning don't serve it at 100%.
Okay.
And
She's
literally
served-
got there.
She's served 5 points in a row going 100%. And he's getting nervous because she's serving it too close to the tape.
You just killed a great opportunity, right? That coach just killed it, right?
Well, he
there.
didn't kill it because she went back and did it because she's my kid.
Oh.
And she's been like, I've been telling her all along,
Okay, that's
don't
good.
listen to your coach when they tell you to
Okay.
play it safe. And I'm just like, what? And then they won the match.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, what universe are you watching this? But I just, so like, this is what they do though, right? In practice, they are murdering the kid's ability and drive to go for it. Your job as a coach is to make your players go for it all the time. And when we run clinics, youth clinics, I remember we would have this carryover, like we're running these youth programs, and you go through the skill and you do all these serving drills, and then the players go back and then you're working on them with the overhand serve, little kids, right? First time. And they go back to serve in the game where we're keeping score, but it's just a nothing fun game in a clinic setting.
Yeah.
And the kid goes back to the other hand. I go, whoa,
Yeah.
what are you doing? And they're like, trying to get the point. And I'm like, no. You're here. No, we don't care about the point. You're here to practice overhand serving. You were just doing it in a drill. Why are you reverting back to safe? And they think that in a game they're not supposed to. I said, listen, if not here,
It's shocking how that happens.
then where?
eh?
If not here, then where? No, but that's why people live their lives.
Well, that's what I mean. It's not just in volleyball. Like, how is that happening? It's because it's pervading into our entire lives. That's what I mean.
And
It's
this is why the coach is not just arriving at the safe approach.
Yeah.
Nobody lives their life with gusto. Like, very few people get to that point where they're just like, I'm going for it.
What do you think that the other team wants to hear from that coach? Like, okay,
Yeah.
Good one.
now that she's been doing 100%, now we're going to get an 80%. That boosts the confidence of the other team.
No, it's,
Yeah.
it's something the other coach.
hilarious.
It's something the other coach would yell to the server if he or she could. 80%,
Yeah.
please.
80%.
That's a great
80%.
That's a great point.
Yeah, that's too funny.
Oh yeah, you're stifling the team. My other favorite one that coaches, just it ties in with this whole thing too about statistics, is there's this thing going around on the internet that every coach says now, and I hear it and I can't believe they say it. Okay, after the other team calls a timeout, you just get your serve over. So in other words, you don't go 100%.
Oh,
You don't go 100% after the serve. Here's why that is absolute bullshit. Coaches, so you're gonna
gave them a way out.
let that coach's timeout dictate how your player serves.
Yeah.
Way to go. Way to tell every kid. Okay, kids, you know what? We tell all the kids, don't worry about what people think. Don't worry about what people do.
Where'd that voice come from?
Well, that's it. Anyway.
He's really passionate about this topic.
No, but don't don't stifle me, Eric.
Oh, sorry. Go for it.
I'm out here going for it.
Be your own
80's like
self.
80% on the voice. Anyway, okay. Anyway,
Please, please continue.
now I feel
Please
I
continue.
can't be myself now.
We don't know if
I feel
if
self-conscious.
if the viewers like the voice yet. So
Yeah.
I don't care if they like the voice.
There we go. That's,
I'm out here living.
He's
Anyway.
true to himself.
Anyway,
yeah.
they tell players don't serve hard after a timeout, and I'm like, oh great, because that's what the other coach called a timeout for.
Yeah.
Kudos.
Yeah.
Kudos.
To get us out.
so you want to go right back with what you came in with.
Yeah. The whole idea
Why
is
would
like,
you let up?
I want the stat on that. On how many coaches do that.
oh, well,
I want the stat
well,
on how many coaches take stats.
the stat. Yeah, that's interesting. It's probably a lot now because they're all on the internet getting the same garbage, watching the same garbage videos. Here's the thing too: they're watching the high level coaches, and they're mistaking their 14U boys and girls team for the national team. And I'm like, oh, there's a difference.
Yeah, but on the national team, they don't tell their servers to serve 80%.
No, that's the one thing they're not doing. But all of these people are, all of these coaches are watching that stuff, and they want to pretend they're big time coaches. So they're getting people on the bench to keep stats, not understanding that
stuff.
all those players who got there to the national
So
team
they're gonna
got there
have-
by not playing it safe. That's
Right.
why they're there.
And when you have those high level coaches, keep in mind they've got 6 other coaches because of the funding that they get to be able to be analyzing everything else around those stats.
And the video, and those guys and girls, those men and women coaches at that level, they know what they're looking at too. So when they talk about a player about the passing, they're playing with disciplined players who they know are not stepping into lanes. And in the video, they will punish the player who stepped into the lane. They're not doing what these coaches are doing, who are punishing the passer or punishing the missed serve. Remember, I told you that story early in the first episode. I talked about that story about that 2 national teams. Remember, nobody went back to that guy who hammered a serve into the net when he was going to win the match. They could have won the match at 3-1, but the other team came back, won that set.
Yeah, right.
And nobody goes back
Yeah.
and says like, "Oh, you shouldn't have went for it." But you do
my
hear
gosh.
do
Yeah.
hear that message here in these practices.
I mean, there is... I can see a use. Like in the example we were talking about earlier, if my coach criticized me on my passing stats, I think it could be useful if they gave me, hey, Erik, you are only passing 2 balls when you have to step back, pass high on your left side. I would actually appreciate that because that's actually currently one of my weaknesses. Step back, high forearm pass. I have a tough time getting it to the setter, right? So I could use some reps on that. Like float, I think it's mostly the float. Like that would be great. If you're isolating it, what's going on, then we can, when we're in butterfly or just the passing drills, we can, and it also gives the opportunity.
Why don't you just stay low and face pass and shuffle out and face pass that?
That is possible.
There you go. Solved.
Wow.
You're welcome.
Anyways,
Anyway.
so
And again, that's
Guru strikes again.
it gives
that's an opinion that can be shared by the coach. It doesn't need to be a numerical stat.
Yeah, right.
It's a fact.
It's just
a
a
fact.
straight up observation. We don't know what the solution is, whether it is to shuffle.
That's
and
the
use my
solution.
hands.
That's the solution.
Shut up. And
Thank you.
it'll give the other players the opportunity to aim for a specific zone on the court. So
Meach
you can
is
practice
smiling
their
too
serve.
much. Meach was smiling too much when you told me to shut up. I
Oh.
don't like it.
So
I'm gonna turn off the power.
That's a situation where I think it could be useful.
Yes.
No,
No, 100%. I don't. So again, yeah. Let's be clear. Stats are a tool.
they're a tool.
They
Yes.
are another tool to use, but any tool, if that's the only tool you use, then that's not gonna help. Like if I go to put together a shed
is-
that has a bunch of screws and I take out a hammer or
Like you said, it doesn't draw a conclusion.
pliers.
Uh-oh.
I'm just gonna cut him off.
Where's he going?
You simply do not draw conclusions from.
Yes, that's just
Like
one
you said.
tool. So if I'm building that shed, and
He
I
just buys sheds. He doesn't.
I buy sheds that are harder to put together than building sheds, and I say to myself, "Oh, shed."
Wow.
Yeah. Dad joke. Hashtag dad joke. Anyway, okay, so stats can be good. Now, here's another cool thing about stats. Now, do you know what? I was listening to little shudder there.
Yeah.
Ooh. Just keep your nipples in your shirt. Anyway, if you're getting cold, I mean.
Okay.
Um,
Otherwise?
Otherwise, it'll cause some
Feel
friction and feedback. Yeah, if you're feeling fine. Anyway, you shouldn't mention nipples. It's only episode 5.
Yeah.
So
Wait,
one
this
cool.
is the last episode.
Yeah, this is the last.
Yeah.
We gave it a good go.
We gave it a good go. I think we gave it a good go.
We'll end with a bang.
What?
We'll end with a bang.
Sorry? Anyway.
Bang. I'll just say it.
Anyway, so one cool stat that's happening that I think is interesting, but I don't know if it's interesting. What do you think of this one? There's a thing going around NCAA volleyball, pro volleyball, where they are measuring the numbers of jumps that players are doing now.
Interesting.
In a season. So they're finding that, okay, this outside hitter spin serves, and they swing a lot outside. They get a lot of sets. Does this player need to do this drill? Are we going to kill their legs? So over the course of the season, you're like saving their jumps. And so I can tell you as an outside hitter, we got a lot of sets. Sets with a T, S-E-T-S. Why are you laughing? Why are you laughing when I said that?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
He always needs to try.
I want you to feel free.
Yeah.
As an outside player
Okay.
who got a lot of sets, and I jump served nonstop.
Oh.
Several in a row.
Yeah, but if you
no,
only
no.
jump 2 inches, then
Whoa.
Then-
That's heightest. Heightest. I didn't know you were such a heightest.
then you're good, man.
Yeah,
You
mine
can-
was a.
You can go till
I-
you're 90.
I didn't have a jump serve as much as a hover serve. Anyway, no,
Yeah.
but I fatigue in matches was the thing for sure. So that's interesting. What do you think of that? If they are saving, so they say that, especially outside hitters, for example, it could be a middle, maybe if a middle spin serves a lot. You don't need to do this drill because we want to save your total number of jumps.
That's long-term thinking. That could be
Are they thinking
Okay,
for the
good.
season?
Yes,
Yeah.
season long.
season long.
That's interesting. I mean, baseball pitchers save
See,
the arm.
that's the one that I was getting at too, and that's interesting because there's a theory like there are more Tommy John, elbow blowouts today in baseball than there ever used to be back in the day
Now,
where there were
mind
no pitch
you,
counts.
That baseball pitch is pretty gnarly on the arm, right? You're talking crazy. I don't know the proper kinesiology terms or whatever, right? But stuff is being ripped and
Yep.
your arm is just decelerating on its own, right? So that's not good. But again, there's definitely a similarity.
But it's wear and tear.
Yeah, wear and tear for sure. We don't. Yeah.
I think that's an excellent reason to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, but but in baseball, some people who can't argue against it. So like in Japan, for example, they don't hold pitchers on strict pitch counts, but they do have 6-day rotation. So they have 6 starting pitchers in Japan. So they let the pitchers pitch longer. There's no restriction on pitch count or less of a restriction.
Okay.
And then they have an extra day of rest,
Right.
which is interesting.
Right.
And a lot of people think that the Tommy John surgery, that's the pitcher's elbow blowing out. They think that sort of pandemic, if you want to call it that, started when some people believe when they started protecting pitchers. In other words, remember, it ties in with our hard thing discussion.
Yeah.
Is there an argument to be made that if you are letting them go longer, like the games are actually building strength and resilience? If you start protecting outside hitters or players who jump too much, is it more likely that they might get injured because they aren't going through the reps? It's sort of like, are you strengthening them through the reps? And if you start protecting them, are they actually maybe going to not be able to handle the drive later on? It's an interesting theory, or interesting topic.
I'm wondering if when you're past a certain amount, like you've been doing it for so long, in terms of career-wise, if it really matters.
You mean like your age?
Age.
Oh, age, I think. Oh, so you mean like, so like if you're accustomed to doing it,
Yeah. We need.
are you
to,
better at doing? Are you saying like then you might not need to? What the hell are you saying?
He's just saying like if as you get older, like if you were jumping like crazy all the way up until you're 40 and you're still going.
Use it or lose it.
Well, no. Are you saying that if you're jumping like crazy and
See, you don't know either. Let Meach talk, Eric.
The
Yes.
most important thing is I don't even know what I'm saying. Okay, just look at that. No, when you're like a seasoned veteran, like, are you being saved for your career or are you being saved for the game?
Gotcha. Right. I think what this is, so what the college coaches are doing now and a lot of national teams is they're saving them for that season, the end of that season.
Yes. If
Okay,
it's
More legs.
if it's for a season, then I would say that you need to rationalize how much you're doing, and that would be a good way to look at it.
This did happen to me in one of my years at varsity. It was a pretty good like record-setting year for me, but then we get to our championships was a 2-day tournament. That's the way that this division did their championships, which I wasn't used to. Right, so you're playing a big match, and because it's a big tournament, like even if your match is at 4 p.m. that day, your team gets practice time at like 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. or something like that, right? So anyways, what ended up happening is I think just leading up, because the season ends and then, I don't know, 5 days later, your championships begin, right? Anyways, what happened is in our second match in the championship tournament, my legs were just done. They were just cooked. So I haven't really had that happen to me before, except in that situation. Mind you, again, variables. I definitely wasn't dealing with nutrition properly and stuff like that, and rest. So
This was indoor?
this was indoor. Yeah, this is indoor, and I just absolutely had no legs, and there's nothing on the day of the day of that last game, or the one where we win and move on or lose and we're done. I just knew, and there's nothing I could do. It's like I can roll it out as much as I want. I can stretch. I can eat. Like it's just there. Biologically,
Nutrients aren't
it's
there.
not going to happen, right? So it has happened to me once, yeah. But again, the variables around it, because in other situations, I love to get all the sets,
Of course.
right? And I kind of think that I'm able to run the full match 5-set long or the full day tournament because of the volume I've got in the past,
I know.
right? So
That's what I'm getting at.
yeah, like I don't know what the right answer is, but in my experience and my preference is I want to be the hot player that gets the majority of the balls, right?
Well, sorry. It's not setting in game. Like they'll set the player in games nonstop.
right.
It's those extra reps in practice that.
Yeah, but I would
still-
also be the guy. I would be the guy
I
in
know.
practice that practice ends, and I'm like, hey, can you send me a bunch of balls?
Exactly.
And I'll just go until like I used to, anyways. I don't have a team to practice with anymore, but that's
Until you're exhausted. Right?
yeah, right?
Yeah,
Because
I think there's too much. Like, I think it's interfering too much. Like we talked about this too. Like there's a tendency to interfere too much in things, and I mean, like I said, like so it sounds like these are hollow jumps. Like they're talking like they're meaningless extra jumps and wear and tear on the legs. But for a 25-year-old, 28-year-old athlete, I don't know if that's possible.
especially because let's separate it from the baseball pitch. A volleyball jump, when it's done properly and they're healthy and the right physique, they should be able to decelerate from when they land, right? Even though the volleyball spike is very lopsided, and we typically land, if we're right-handed, we tend to land on our left leg, right?
No, I don't think we need to get into the mechanics of how violent a baseball. No, but
that's the difference between the baseball.
No,
pitch.
but
The
just forget.
baseball
Let's
pitch-
think about quads and calves. Quads and calves are just getting exerted here.
Right, but your
And knees.
quad is not getting massively torn like your elbow is
Yes,
in a
okay.
baseball pitch.
Yeah. But I think the premise is the same. So let's get baseball out of the picture then. The idea is, are these legs going to wear out? That's the law. That's what they're thinking here. Is that the legs are going to wear out.
And again, it's just an opinion. I would think no.
I think you might run the risk of not getting them prepared enough for like a match. Like see, here's the fool's gold tricky part of this. You're protecting a player, and then you're like, oh man, now look, they've run out of gas in a 5-setter, right? Maybe you caused that. See, like again, going back to stats.
I've never heard of this.
Well,
until
going
you
back,
brought this up
I know,
today.
yeah, it's a real thing. So going back to this situation, like this is what we were talking about with statistics, right? Your stats are like, wow, they're just not cutting it in the 5th set. Look at their kill percentage drop, 4th set, 3rd set. We got to protect that player. But maybe, right? This is what I'm talking about. Like this is why stats are so dangerous, because you think, because you're trapped in this mindset of like, we got to protect her more, or we got to protect him more. Maybe it's the opposite. And I know there's the reason why I brought up baseball is because I know there's a couple baseball guys, old school guys, not that old, but like retired players, who say that they think that that's what's happening with pitchers. They're protecting them so much now.
Right.
Like when we talked about this off the top too, this is societal, right? Like not just is it societal with coaches and data.
Yeah.
It's also this idea of protecting everybody, right? What if we're actually protecting them into, because, if it's a universal law, it's a universal law. Protection doesn't really help anybody cope later on.
Yeah.
Right? You want to eliminate some of those protections. And maybe that's why they're dropping in later sets, if you're protecting them.
This is tying into two things that we've mentioned on previous shows, right? So last show, mindset, you develop it by being in those tough situations, right? And just as people say your brain is like a muscle, you need to exercise it. Well, your muscle is a muscle. And so by giving it that stress and putting it into that tough situation, it's going to get stronger. And then that links back to what we mentioned, I don't know when, but the whole idea of activating your genes, right? Activating genetics. Now your body's thinking like, this is, I don't know, like let's talk survival of getting food or something. We need to jump high because that's a survival mechanism, whether we're running from prey or predation, or we need to get food off, I don't know, we need to jump high and get it off a tree.
Yeah. Or
you
at
know what I mean?
Costco.
Or Costco. Yeah. That would be great if Costco put everything up high.
Oh,
wow.
Nobody would go.
That's right. Get to making shopping a struggle. Yeah, that needs to be.
I do sort of. Sorry, Eric. Do you mind if I just go?
No. That's all I want to say is mindset and genetics.
I do, just off topic, but I do like to, if I'm ever in a Costco, I do like to look at, like, I sort of think it's very sad. I'll see a person pushing a cart with the glazed over eyes, and maybe it's the husband pushing the cart and the wife is loading it up, and I'm like, this is what's happened to the hunter. The hunter male is now just pushing. In the wilderness, he'd be out there like catching animals.
Yo, but his calves, man, his calves can go forever.
But I think, man, this is what's happened to the hunter-gatherer. He is now, or she is now, if you want to, pushing a cart, just loading pre-killed frozen animal or veggie, if for equal opportunity murder here.
Hey, you eat vegetables and fruit.
I eat vegetables and fruit.
Meat.
Yeah, and I kill plants and animals. But anyway, we just sort of, that's the hunter, and so we lost that hard thing, and it's just too easy. We've protected the hunter, and now the hunter is useless.
Yeah, can you imagine a store that thought in the other aspect where everything was hard to get. The shelves were high. The
animals running around
a track. They're whipping around the store.
You take it. You had to compete to bring your groceries to the line,
or you get a better
something like
that. We just gave someone $1 million idea. You're welcome.
You get a bigger discount if you can There's a whole bunch of conveyor belts, and they'll go at different speeds.
Oh my
like
gosh!
Yeah, and you grab it, and then you get 50% off.
Or if you go in there to get your food, but really you're like someone's hunting you.
Oh my gosh!
Oh jeez,
that would be perfect.
Fun. Wow.
Survival of the fittest.
But that's what would happen.
The most dangerous game.
The more fit people would be able to get either in our weird, wacky grocery store all the food or all the discounts, and then all the people that weren't strong or whatever would kind of. Well, they'd probably die out. Yeah. Wouldn't they?
Yeah.
Or they can go to the stores that don't provide that fun.
Yeah. Imagine if you get eaten at the end. Holy. That'd be awesome. Can you imagine?
No, I can't.
Oh my God.
I don't want to imagine that.
That would be the best. Anyway, off topic, guys. Grow up. Okay, so I want to talk about something called I've coined a new phrase. As you guys know, I like to sit around on the weekends and think of new phrases. And I've come.
Did we talk about this before the show? Is this safe?
Yeah, I think this is safe. Yeah.
Oh. Okay.
It's to do with a meat cheese rash. No, it's the spotlight effect, I call it. And what it is when you're looking at something and that's all you're looking at, then you miss all of what's in the dark area around the spotlight, right? So, and it's sort of what we were talking about with the player. Yeah. Like if I'm looking for a player's legs to get tired, then that's all I'll see. If I'm looking for a player to miss, who misses their serves a lot, I sometimes don't notice the other things they're doing well or the serves they're even getting. Mm-hmm. I only notice when they miss, or I'm not noticing the player who's passing dimes all practice, but I'll notice when that player doesn't pass. And, the stats, sometimes you need good stats to help you see the good too. But a lot of coaches will focus on the negative, right? They'll focus on the negative too much, and they plant that in the player's seed, and it's planted as a seed in the player's head, and then it sort of makes sometimes, like, can you mess up a player by pointing out a stat to them?
I'm gonna say 100%. Yeah.
Right?
Totally.
Yeah.
Should you then just focus on only the positive?
No, I think that
Because the other side of that would be they need to know what the negative is, like the stat that they're doing.
That would be
Terrible.
one way to
Yeah.
balance it out, is if you also pair it up with the successes and stuff like that, I guess.
yeah.
But then now I'm even as the player, I'm focused now on this specific thing where the game is dynamic. Like, I can't be like, oh, my shot to 5 or 4 or whatever, I'm only hitting it at 63%. That's just like you go up and you hit the ball, the block is different every time, the set's slightly different every
Variables.
time. Yeah, so there are general things you should be working towards, which is just a successful approach and timing and contacting the ball high, and then general areas to put the ball, which then you can target specifically and improve upon, because it's one thing to say hit deep at the back line, and then actually try and do that. That's difficult. Like to hit the back line.
Speak for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Hit it within 1 to 2 feet consistently. Super hard.
Meach, tell him last night. How many times did I do that? Be
I
honest.
think he probably did it
Adult
like
volleyball super recreational championships.
twice. Like hit the back line.
Sideline.
It's probably off the block, and then
It was pretty good. Let's just. I'm just gonna end the show here.
On a positive note.
We'll let me think about that until next week. Anyway, so you're saying that it's too dynamic of a game. What about
It
this?
is.
So, yeah, Meach,
It is. Like there's in volleyball specifically, there's way too many variables to account for everything.
remember Yarmer Yager? Like, he used to, I would hear that after practice, like just like Kobe and stuff, on his own time on the ice, he would like line up pucks, 5 degrees off what's the back red line?
the icing line.
Yes, thank you. I used to play hockey too. Anyways, and he would just fire 100 pucks. Shut up. Don't. Anyways, 100 pucks from like 5 degrees off, and then 100 pucks, 10 degrees, 15. So and the guy was crazy.
Yes, Yager had a work ethic.
Yager
He's still
was
playing.
nuts.
He's still playing.
He's
somewhere.
still playing. He's
Still
50. He's playing in
professionally.
Czech.
Yes.
Yeah. So certain players.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think adults are different than kids. And I think that, like we talked about with Jordan being a hard ass with teammates is much different than Jordan being a hard ass with kids. And
Yeah.
coaches
Right.
treating these young kids like they're professional athletes, telling a 12-year-old girl, like, hey, you passed like shit last game.
And it was Yager and Bryant or Kobe and Jordan's own decision to go and do that. They,
Yes.
I'm guessing anyways.
But they're adults. So by that age, you got to pull it together, right? Like this
Yeah.
is your career.
That's their career.
Yeah, they didn't have people trampling on. What about? So I mean, I'm a firm believer that you can talk about stats with young kids, but I think that the best way to do it for junior age is maybe talk about team stats. Hey guys, as a team,
Yeah.
and that way you're not centering people out and you're not making them feel like idiots. And you could talk about in games, by the way, not in practice. Or even if you want to bring it into practice, then sure, do it in
Well,
practice.
yeah, at the start of the practice, like, hey, as a team, we pass like this. Yeah.
Talk about a way to reinforce that team mentality versus like they literally go around and tell kids their stats in front of the whole team.
At that age, it would just ruin the fun for me.
Yeah, it just leads to bullying too, right? And all that
Yeah.
crap that coaches worry about. So
I'm a big fan of the group stats because it takes the pressure off of the individual, but they also at the same time know that only as a team can they improve those stats. So that's a good way to do it.
especially because you were always the guy that was fucking up the most, right? So that
Wow.
you would,
Absolutely.
yeah.
But through fucking up, I got better, and that's all it's all
And he
about.
dragged his
And
team
Meach,
down with him.
I'd appreciate if you don't swear on the fucking show. Okay,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Okay.
Anytime.
Sorry, audience.
Adults. This is
There's no one watching.
Yeah, that's true. We're swearing into the abyss. So I think that.
I got another one.
Oh, sorry. Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
That's okay. Talking about stats after the game drove me crazy.
right after the game.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It didn't drive me crazy. It just,
Made you upset?
It drove me insane.
yeah, it was just something I didn't want to hear. Whether it was a win or a loss, it's like,
So timing of stats.
well, because, we'd be on the bus on the way home. We got like a 4-hour drive home or whatever. And the guys are all waiting. Oh, the stats aren't up yet. Stats aren't up yet. And then stats are up on the bus. And like, oh, I hit, 80% or something. Or I got like 6 blocks. Oh, yeah.
Was it like stats that the school would publish on the website, or was this like internal stats by the assistant coach?
No. These were the official stats.
Oh, so like are these like glory stats? Like you didn't have your Shanks?
No, like every league has their stats, right?
Yeah, but I mean, but usually the ones published aren't talking about like.
No, they're only talking about
miss serves.
kills,
It doesn't have
blocks,
miss serves.
aces,
It's vanity stuff. Yeah,
hitting errors. Yeah.
Oh, it did have hitting errors.
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure.
It was blocking errors, hitting success, block success, aces. I don't know if it was miss serves.
Passing percentage and
No, passing.
See, that's what I'm saying. Like stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. It was all the glory stuff.
But your team your coach would have that. Your coaches didn't share it with you guys.
Correct. We would have our own stats for the other stuff.
And next day video room stuff. That's what we.
Yeah.
Would you be forced to look at those statistics? Or could you just
again, just in my experience, what it mostly was post game was a debriefing, and it was accompanied by video and not really too much discussion on.
So
stats.
Your coaches would do a debriefing next day.
Yeah, on one of the teams,
but
not
practice. Not the same night.
No, not the same night.
Oh,
I think it would be done like the next day. Again, because we're probably a little sore or something. So instead of doing a 2 practice that day, the morning practice or the early afternoon we would just be sitting down, just hanging out, going over the game tape, right? And then kind of seeing what's going on there. And then probably the evening practice was just something like light or something.
So what drove you nuts about so players chose to go look at the stats?
Well, yeah, I mean, we lose a game and then, guys are hyped up and happy about their stats.
Interesting. So what you're saying there is the problem with too many stats in junior or college or post-secondary even is that it gets the players too focused on themselves and their own results, almost like they don't care about the results of the team.
I don't want to say that I don't think that is their actual mindset, but that is what it exudes. That's what it expresses, right? So it's one thing to be the expression. It's one thing to be the true intent. I hope they're not the same.
No, but I think the result is what the problem is. The result, like we talked about this a little bit before.
It will lead to that if you're dwelling on it.
The problem with individual
you're conditioning your brain to think that way.
You're teaching players to focus too much on what they're doing in a sport where you want athletes to think less. You do not want volleyball players to think.
Well, this wasn't done on the coach's initiative. This is just the players are allowed to freely do what they want.
Now I'm talking about a world with stats. Okay, so I'm talking about a world with stats, whether the coach does it, whether it's the program, whether it's the university, whether it's the college.
Okay, I see.
In a world with stats, individualized stats, it makes that sort of that spotlight effect I was talking about. It makes the individual way too focused on themselves in a vain culture. And then that makes them perform differently. It makes them think a lot while they're performing. And so here's the beauty. Like, this is the great contradiction of sport, because we talked about this. Everybody's goal is to get into flow state, right? It's selling all these books about flow state. Flow state basically is a nice word to say, I'm hot right now. I'm in the zone. Yeah. I'm going, right? But everybody, someone had a TED talk on flow states, so now it's become this thing. It's like grit. I can't stand the term grit.
True grit.
True grit. But do you know what's happened with that, Meach? Like, someone did a TED talk on grit, and this new thing.
That was like 6 years ago.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, but there's this thing called. I did a study, and there's this thing called grit. And I'm like, oh, you mean like mental tough? Like, like we would just call in the old days, or like, oh, someone who like fights through, struggles through. But no, she did this intellectual study about this thing called grit. Because she's not someone who's performed at sports before, so she just thinks that it's like.
Well, there's no harm in just giving it another name.
But the
as
whole
long
idea
as
was trying to foster grit.
That's the problem.
Trying to manufacture grit. And we talked about this. It's hard to replicate hard things. You know, the gym is it, right? Like, you know, in the gym, people are trying to replicate running from the dinosaur. No, that's a historical inaccuracy. I know it is. Don't write us or email us, because we know that dinosaurs didn't exist.
Well, I mean, alligators are dinosaurs.
Yeah. And birds.
I know.
Birds are.
I can go on.
Birds are like little T-Rexes with wings. Just picture. Anyway, I digress. Anyway, what was I saying? So grit, all this stuff. So in a culture with stats, we are making people think more about themselves, and I will guarantee you that will make them play worse.
You will guarantee it.
Yeah, they are. I see it every day. I see it in all these club practices, these club teams, these over self-obsessed kids who are just like, you know, worried too much about messing up because they're statistics. They're being told to them. Whereas, like, you know, remember how we opened the show? We talked about how people are losing the feel of things, right? Because the numbers. Yeah. So these coaches are looking at these papers. They're telling these numbers to the kids, and the kid is not having any feel, right? Like, how many of our playing days you're going on feel, right? Like, if I have numbers in my head when I'm going up in the air for something, I'm going to lose the ability to say, no, you know what? I'm going to try this now. I'm going to try that now. I'm going to do this now. I'm going to hide this, hide that, attack this, not attack that. Mm-hmm. We're losing feel.
Yeah,
in the name of statistics.
Based on the stat.
Yeah.
And that self-obsession of what my stat is and what my stats are. Like, I don't understand. Like, this isn't just a volleyball problem. This is a societal problem. And I'm just going to say, like, the past 2 years were the culmination of this. You know, our brains are in reptile mode, and our technology is going so fast, and we can track everything. Okay. And if we keep, as a society, as a coach, as a whatever, overreacting to data, we're going to go nuts, and we're going to mess up everything. So we have so much data at our disposal that it is, and our reactions. So here's the deal. If we can get data so fast and so powerfully, we can't go running in one direction based on some data. We, as a society, as a team, people run in a direction to fix the data problem. But what if the data problem is short-lived or something, and you've now set this course, and now you can't change course because there's a new data. Yeah. No, there's new data that you know. So if we, as our ability to collect so much data increases, we better learn to slow down, and pause. Right, the value of nobody pauses before they decide anything now. Everybody wants an answer now, yesterday. Yep. And if you give that answer, it's such a public society now that you can't back down from the wrong answer. So we better pause on all the data and then set our course, maybe, right? You know what I mean? Like, we're rushing.
Maybe restart our decisions by the feeling.
Yes, like there's no more feel. I mean, I think the start of the stat problem. Do you remember, or you know where this came from? What the Moneyball, right? The Oakland A's.
I was going to get to there.
The Oakland A's baseball team, they started this whole data-driven thing about, like, okay, we're going to get players based on statistics, these other little statistics that other teams didn't know, and our whole team is going to be built on statistics. And they were able to produce some pretty competitive Oakland A's baseball teams. Billy Beane was his name. They made the movie Moneyball based on this, right? And
it's got to be tough.
Have you seen it?
Yeah.
Brad Pitt, yeah. And
it's got to be tough to be a baseball player because stats are so prevalent in baseball.
Baseball is such a stat-driven sport.
Yeah, and clearly it works in a way. So to being a player, as we've just disclosed, like, stats on a player is difficult. Again, adult, kid is different, right? And these are all adults. However, that would be that's an added dynamic challenge to the game.
Yeah, baseball's fascinating because it kind of has to be a stat sport. I think there's so much, like, you know, how fast you're pitching, how fast your bat is. But so Oakland took it to the next level. That was the difference. So they started analyzing,
recruiting,
signing players who hit certain criteria, and they just went across the board. And they were cheaper players, by the way, because they weren't hitting home runs. They were getting, like, okay, on base percentage, and, you know, a lot of new stats came out of the Oakland A's that weren't in baseball before. But here's the the thing nobody ever talks about is that they never won a championship. They made the playoffs and they got competitive. They never won a championship. But every team started copying them because they saw the allure was that, hey, we can pay players less and still do, amazing things in the playoffs or whatever. But their attendance didn't sell out. The stadiums didn't fill up. They never won a championship. But people ran with this micro measuring of data. And I mean, it wasn't just the Oakland A's. It really was a societal thing, right? Like we talked about, your phone can tell you when you're, we were talking about this. Like Erik said to me a week ago or something, like, hey, I've been sleeping better the last couple of days. He wasn't wearing his, it was an iWatch?
It's a Polar watch.
Okay. So it's a Polar watch. And it measured his sleep, and he hadn't used it for like a year because he's not big into data too much.
But lately, I've been working on trying to
improve his sleep.
Improve my sleep.
So he told me, hey, I slept a lot better last couple of nights, right? But then he also said that he was tossing and turning quite a bit. And I said, so maybe you didn't sleep well, but the device said you slept well. But your feeling was that you didn't sleep as well as the device was saying, kind of.
You're probably going to miss a bunch of things. But yeah.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
I do, but I wore it for a reason because I am running an experiment and it's a device that will give me a measurement, right?
Yeah, but you fought me on it and then you apologized. Okay, that's all the time we have. That's all the time we have for this. He doesn't
like me using measuring devices. Okay.
No. I just said that. I was just saying that
I understood your point.
Yes, no, and you agree.
I'm not sure. I did agree.
Yes,
but I'm not sure if you understood that I was just simply using it as a measuring device.
I think you're just saying that afterwards.
If you think, no, that sucks. If you're thinking that truly, if you think I'm that stupid to rely on a watch to tell me if I'm sleeping well or not,
well,
that was awkward. Because I don't know. That's, anyways.
No, I don't think you're that stupid. I just think that I was trying to make the point that any measurement device is marketing itself, and the more we rely on devices, then the less that's what the ideal scenario for society.
Where was I relying on it?
No, I wasn't saying you were but I did say that you
were making the point of,
I said that your anecdotal feel for how you slept disagreed with the watch.
Yeah, and I pointed that out to you.
Yeah, and that was the experiment.
The experiment was
to see how closely the watch matched how you actually felt.
Yes, and it did actually.
Erik told me he slept really well.
This is not what I told him.
Yes, this is what I told him. I have the text messages, and and then I said, but you said the watch. You said that the watch.
Because I also told you I rolled around a lot. So how?
And he wouldn't have admitted that.
No, but he said, look, he showed me a picture of the watch and the sleep report. He said, hey, I slept better last couple nights.
Okay,
and then he told me that he was rolling around a lot. I said, so wait a minute. So the watch is wrong, Erik.
Okay, so hold on. So
and then Zuby said, that's not what I saw.
No, I wanted.
And then I saw. Oh, that's what. I mean, Meach just implied that I'm a stalker.
Yeah. Creepy.
I didn't imply
so
it.
I actually would have gone into a few more details. However, I woke up in the morning. I showed him a picture, and it's basically it shows like green or red, right?
It sounds like you report to me in the morning.
I want
to see your sleep watch.
Yeah, we're friends.
Erik, how did you sleep last night? Show me.
So I thought it was kind of neat. Anyways, I'm like, I just woke up. I'm groggy, and so I sent him this picture, and then he goes off on this. He goes on this rant of like how I shouldn't use these things and what the harm I'm doing to myself.
But I did tell you.
And I was holy shit.
Remember, I did tell you I had a lot of stuff going on in my personal life. Remember?
Yes, you did. This is true.
Yes.
And now I think about it, the stuff that I never got to tell you because we went on in this disagreement is that there's a few things that I find personally interesting, which is your heart rate variability. Okay, so when we are stressed, the time between our heartbeats, because your heart contracts and relaxes, right? But when you're stressed,
are you telling us what a heartbeat is?
No, I'm telling you what heart rate variability is.
Okay. Yes. Okay. What do you think your heart rate variability is right now?
Okay, so on a normal heartbeat, it's supposed to the time will change between the contraction phase, between each contraction phase, right? So it'll be like 50 milliseconds, and then it'll be like 73 milliseconds, right? And so having variable heart rate is a sign of health, because it's a sign of is it the sympathetic, parasympathetic? I don't know which one's the relaxed one. I forget.
Parasympathetic, I believe.
That, yeah, I'm not sure. I forget.
Yeah.
But when you're stressed, that interval remains the same. It's going to be the same amount of time. So that's an indication that someone is in their fight or flight mode, right? But when they're relaxed, it'll have a good variability to it. And that's just correlated with being relaxed. Okay. So one thing like that, right? And then it'll kind of give you I'm not sure how accurate it is, an idea of how much REM you're getting and how much deep sleep. And my deep sleep was not good because it also gives you amount of time that you spent moving. So I think I slept for something like 8.5 hours, but I spent like 50 minutes with high levels of movement. So that would explain the rolling around and stuff.
However, what were you doing, Erik?
I don't know. I was probably beating you up in my dreams.
Oh, whoa.
However,
whoa.
There is always a time. I think the times I'm rolling around, it's like I always wake up around 4 or 5 in the morning, right? And then I think it's the interval before that and shortly after that where I'm definitely like out cold, right? And in those times, that's where I go into deep sleep, and then my heart gets into this phase of good heart rate variability. My heart rate drops to like, I don't know, like 40 or something like that. And so then the watch just gives me median averages at the end of the sleep session. So I don't know the lowest points and I don't know the highest points. It will break it into chunks though. So I thought those were interesting indications because I've stopped eating after 6 p.m. or 8 p.m. lately, right? And I've been exercising and I've been eating well. I've been minimizing junk food. And I know because I would put the watch on times where I wasn't eating well and it would be terrible sleep, right? Okay.
So to sum up, Erik's not too into his watch.
Did I just go on a huge rant? Yeah, I'm not. I used it once, man. It's like a year.
But if you go to bed like that with all those thoughts in your head.
They're not in my head.
They're not in your head?
No.
Where are they?
Oh, my God.
I'm just kidding. I'm sorry. I just like
never again.
No, but I do think that the more we get into this is what I was saying.
Which I agree with.
Yeah, the more we get into stats, that they are in our head. Like, you know, I'm not saying you, but I'm just saying like as a society, the more we get into stats telling us how to feel, or I mean, not you, because I think you no, I'm not saying you.
I don't need the watch though. That's the point you're making, and I do agree with that.
No. Yeah, I'm not talking about you.
Needs it.
No, you're different. You think more deeply about these things than most people, obviously. But I mean people that you know, they are relying on their watch. They are relying on their, you know, how many steps they got. But how is their sleep?
I know.
And they go to bed more self-obsessed, more just more trapped in that paradigm of the statistic, the data, and that's a problem. And that's where we've been, right? The past couple of years, people trapped in data, letting data govern everything they do versus feel. Like we even had, like, the world went against its instincts. Let's be honest, right? Like, you know, so like the advice around in our area over the past 2 years was don't go to the gym and order fast food to help the economy. Like, that's not, you know, don't go outside. Don't get fresh air because you could get sick. Don't go in the sun. Don't exercise. Like, come on, right? But only a society that's so driven by statistics could ever fall into that trap.
But also to defend your point, like, I think because I haven't been living a very good balanced life, right? Mm-hmm. And so had I have been, I likely wouldn't have even purchased this thing.
No, right? You wanted a measurement.
Yeah, but had I been living a better balanced life, like, again, you can go off feel. You totally can, and in that circumstance,
that's what made you put it on, because the feel.
What made me put it on was the fact that I was out of balance. I was stressed.
Your instincts.
That's the reason why I probably bought the thing, because I was like, I'm out of shape. I need to, like, I bought this thing because I saw some influencer use it. It was Goggins. Goggins uses this, right?
Dave Goggins.
Because he's
paid by the company.
Yeah. He's what?
He's paid by the company.
Yeah, he probably could be. Yeah.
Not probably. He definitely is.
Probably. Yeah. Sorry. Definitely is.
Millions of dollar deal.
But in your defense, I don't need it.
Yes.
I absolutely don't, because feel is the ultimate thing to go off of here.
Mm-hmm. And that's sort of, just to bring it back to volleyball, because we went on
a huge
no, but it's all. But, you know, that's what I hope people understand, is that when we are talking, it's the same topic. If there's a heavy reliance on something, I see coach, like, again, to me, it feels like a crutch to a coach who doesn't know the game.
Yeah.
It's easy to say, because this is the one. They use this to parents. Oh, your kid's not playing because how they pass in practice. That's why so many coaches use that defense, because they're worried about the crazy parent. Well, what if you're being the crazy coach right now? What if your reliance on statistics in practice, so you have an answer to the parent? You can't just say to the parent, we need to develop your player, or your player's not performing right now, but they will. We'll get them into games. But again, it ties in with that other stuff about getting all these players in games, right?
So, and again, it comes back to the whole insecurity. It's a cop-out.
It's a cop-out. It's something you can point to that's tangible, but not really a part of the game. And the other question is, so let's suppose you say to a parent, I'm not playing your kid because they're serving statistics in practice or in a game. So when is the player supposed to get better?
Yeah.
Are they supposed to quit volleyball after they're 14 because they can't serve and you're not going to play them?
Yeah.
So you're using these statistics in a stupid way anyway. Because here's the advice, coach. If your player is not getting a serve, not getting their hits, not passing well, maybe they need to be put in situations to do it more, because they won't get better by doing it less. Again, I'll say that again. Players will not get better at a skill by being not able to do it. So why don't you give them more opportunities, because they're juniors. You don't need a trophy on your mantle. You need every player to be better at the end of the year, right?
Because whether it's like we're so complex, it's like it's one thing to know you have, again, passing or something. You're not very good at passing or something, and you can think that, right? But the whole thing is it's a mind-body connection. So you're talking about coordination. You're talking about, you may not have the muscular fitness yet to be able to move that fast to respond, because these float serves, that ball can change direction, quarter of a second, right? So getting those reps and then getting those muscles moving, and the coordination, appropriate reception, it's all, and then and then back with the is this player over jumping? That's kind of why I don't agree with that.
Yep.
Right. Again, as long as they're obviously not injured or whatever, like, I think totally go for it, because you're just improving those neural pathways, man. Like, and I think, because I'm right now, I know I'm not passing that well. I still play just, like fun tournaments and stuff. And so I think in my mind, it's a lack of reps and stuff. And it's also probably partly about my fitness, because I don't, my body torso isn't rotating that well anymore,
just not doing those things enough. That's what we're getting at here. And if coaches are using, but imagine doing that, we're near you're coming up in the latter stage of your career. I'm done playing like competitive ball, but if someone said to you at age 14 or 15 that you can't do something because you don't do it well, that's what I was saying earlier. Remember in the show we were talking about the kids clinics we run, and I'm like, if you're not going to do it here, then where are you going to get better? How are you going to do it? Like, even in the adult clinics we give, right? We'll teach players to spin jump serve or to do an overhand serve, and then the minute we go to the fun scrimmage, they all go back to safe. And I stop the games all the time, and I'm like,
adults and kids do it.
Adults and kids, anybody, because it's just the tendency to revert to safe. And I think that's what the coach is doing by delving into the stats. They want safe, they want tangible, and they pass that toxic thought onto kids. Yeah, because as a kid, like in that example where the coach tells a kid, your serve isn't that good. Now they're carrying that. Again, it's what did you call it? It's spotlight, or the spotlight.
They're focused on it. It's myopic.
The spotlight effect is the term I coined. Yes.
Okay, and you also mentioned the reptilian brain. Well, I
did also mention. I did not coin that term, however.
No, but we are not giving enough. The reptilian brain is our brain. Whatever, it's incredible. It processes so much information at once. So don't just channel it on one little thing. Speak for
yourself, Erik.
So let the player understand, or like you said, the team understand that, hey, we're not passing this well, or we're not attacking that well. Leave it broad like that to let the player absorb the entire environment, because again, there's so much complexity going on with mind-body connection, right? That when that sets up in the air, it's so, I don't know, I'm just saying, like, there's that huge feedback loop.
Yeah, no, sorry. Yeah, I like that term.
Reps, like it's you're building these neural pathways, right? And then so to isolate it by some type of idea, or because a stat is just an idea and it's a rational thought, that's only a fraction of the whole thing. You've got, muscles, jumping, everything. It's just a thought. That's all it is, right? Let your body do its thing, which is much more than just thought.
Yeah. And like I said, I'm okay with game stats. I'm okay with keeping game stats. Yeah, I prefer them to be team stats because I think that reinforces the team nature. But I hate it when they bring it into practice, and I hate it when they use it as a crutch to guide play behavior, because I'm like, so I can't serve well, like
or playtime.
Well, kid X, I can't serve well, so therefore you are going to allow me to serve less, which will only ensure that I will stay bad longer. Thank you, coach.
Yeah, I love these obvious things you guys have pointed out. The 80% or the just get it over after the timeout, because that's literally what the other coach wants to hear.
That's what the other coach would yell out if they could.
That's so funny.
Can you maybe do 80% now? Sure. Just call a timeout and I'll underhand it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. So stats in practice, I think it's just a toxic quality, so Meach, while you were gone, we were talking about how a lot of coaches will use stats in practice, and they claim they're using it to handle the parent who doesn't understand why their kid isn't playing. And again, I wish there were coaches that would tell parents what they're seeing in a game. Like I've had parents come to me before, and I said, like, well, your son, actually it was about Pete.
To you and you're the coach.
So I'm the coach, and Pete was our setter. Kuipers, okay, and
you just mentioned his name.
Pete, Frank.
Yeah. Oh, Frank.
Joe?
Yeah.
Joe, I mean. Yes, it was Joe. Joe Pete. Anyway, he was our setter. And another parent after practice goes, "Can I have a word?" And I turn around and he's wearing like a hockey hat. And I was like, "Oh, here we go." And I was like, he's like, "Yeah, I just wonder why my grandson's not playing more." I was like, "Oh, well, your grandson misses a lot of practice. So that's tricky because, we want to teach good work ethic." And then two, there's some things that you might not notice about the game in terms of how he's setting and where he's setting and what's like some mistakes on the set. So if he comes up to practice more, I'd love to give him more reps and then give him the game time more. But he'll get to play, but I just can't justify it to everybody else who's busting their ass, showing up on time, right? Looks bad. And he totally understood that.
Oh,
yeah, because
okay.
That's the thing. A lot of but I didn't pull out a stats sheet.
Yeah.
Say, oh, here's why, and again, a lot of parents might buy into that crap, but the solution is, if I know the game, then I should be able to articulate what the problem is, and this is, I think, why all these coaches who never played are sitting here using numbers. It's the same thing I saw in teaching. So in teaching, I could explain to a kid why things weren't so good, or a parent why the mark wasn't so good in a paper or something else.
Seeing the whole picture.
Because I knew my shit, right? I hate to say it, but in my time, I knew my shit, whereas other teachers would just give out 95s, 80s, because it's easier. That's right. Parents want to see the number.
But what are we gonna do? Because a lot of coaches don't, like you said, know their shit. So how do you?
Well, I've officially pulled out of playing professionally. So that's what I'm doing.
No.
Yes, I'm announcing it here.
No.
Yes, Meach, I have to go.
No.
I have to go.
No.
I have to go.
Come back for one more.
Oh, that's why it's the last episode.
I'll do it. Go Zuby. Go Zuby. Okay, so I can't believe I just danced for free.
Yes, that's right. No. Can you imagine if a coach was relying on stats and they had to show the same stat for the player that missed 5 practices? Oh, well, it says here on my stats, they're 100% serves and they're 100% in dig receives. So why isn't he getting the play?
That's a good point. Well, that's one that I did want to bring up. Remember, I talked about before. They're not looking at variables. Right. What if you get 3 passes all practice? You know that player sometimes sitting in 5 never gets served, and the players in 6 and 5 get served. That's another one. Your percentage is very low. Well, that's because I never pass. less, or your percentage is very high, or whatever you want to call it.
He hasn't been here.
The bad.
More than, I didn't even know he was still on the team.
Johnson, still 100% all year. Coach Johnson's never here. Which one is Johnson?
The bad thing is that machines are better at collecting stats than humans are, obviously. I actually saw this. It's probably because like our phones are listening to us or whatever, but I forget whether it was Facebook or Instagram, but there was someone's developing an app. I saw it in a volleyball group. Sorry, a volleyball group. An individual. It was not an ad. Sorry. They are working on developing an app that tracks players, and it understands the archetype of what a rally is, and then it tracks the ball and the movement of players, and then it's set up in such a way to detect, record where the set is going, and like whether the attack was as a success. So it's in a crude stage, but ultimately that stuff like that. AI tracking is going to be amazing. It's going to work one day, right?
Yeah. I mean, is it going to track the other side and why? So totally. A success is an attack. What if a player on the other team falls down? Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
It's just like
we're going down this path.
Yeah, like AI is going to get crazy. That is the thing that you're saying is bad on dwelling on these stats. That is what it's going to further facilitate.
100%.
So that's the dangerous road we're going down.
Yeah, and see, as a philosophy guy too, I have a real problem. Whenever this would come up all the time, I had like some computer kids in my class or like coworkers who were like computer type math people, and they're like, "Oh, Zuby, it's going to happen. Computers are going to be sentient one day." And I said, who believes that computers will be totally sentient? Is people who have no clue how complex the human brain is.
Yeah.
There are so many little things that we do. Like right now, we're looking at each other's faces, and I'm seeing when Erik's getting upset. Like, I could tell he was getting very upset. That I had a clue when he said that he wanted to beat me up in his dreams. That was my first clue.
And especially with the variable factor, how does a computer of any sort know if that player got stick-packed in the face before that play came across? So
or if their coach gave them a nasty look when they went back to or missed a serve, and then they shanked the next 3 balls, right? So like, or their parent yelled something from the sidelines, like, is the computer going to pick that up? Or, so like the sense. So I always used to tell people, And it's always, I hate to say this, but a lot of people who are into data are like super sciencey people, and they have no clue. Of course, how complex.
It's a tool. It's a tool of science.
Yeah, but it's a they don't know the philosophical.
Oh, you mean in the rest of their lives?
Yeah, I mean, you see, they're unable to see, or they believe everything can. If you believe everything can be boiled down to data and a number, then you don't know about the brain at all. Like I always used to tell my students, like, okay, the day they invent a sentient computer that I can't sneak up on with a sledgehammer, unless a human programs it to look behind it, I can just smash it to bits. Like a sentient computer is, I don't care. Elon Musk. I think Zuckerberg's a little more realistic too about this, because he doesn't think we'll ever get there either. And I think those people who understand the complexities of human, right now, so our brains are doing so much right now in this conversation that a computer can't even pick up. Yeah, a computer can't even pick up. Erik just made a crazy face. No, but you know what I mean. Like, and people take that for granted. Yeah. And it's the same with volleyball. Like on the court, there is so much going on. Like you were saying, Erik, it's so diverse, dynamic, and there's so many factors into whether even a play is successful. Right? You think, oh, that player serves really well. No, maybe that's a shitty rotation for the other team, and that stat is elevated that game because every time, remember, it's 6-on-6, so the same rotation comes up every time. Or maybe that player who kept shanking the ball is facing the other team's best fucking server.
Yeah, we just keep trying to put like the true human condition into these boxes instead of just let people
because we have no faith in ourselves. We have no faith in the human. We want to dumb it down. We want any dummy to be able to come over and run this fucking team, run this fucking organization.
Here's a manual.
Here's a manual. Here's some data. Just take the dummies out of it.
Just go play. Like that's how we all learned, right?
I would hate to see the day where the stats play each other.
I'm pretty sure it's happening
Oh,
somewhere.
yeah.
Don't they have
fantasy football?
Yeah,
Isn't
don't
that-
they have computers playing simulations, right? They had that forever, but
yeah, like in chess. No, but isn't fantasy football based like it's
all
virtual
stats,
games?
yeah. Well, it's all no. It's I think
Don't
fantasy
they-
football usually is
Oh,
like
no.
taking your
Yeah,
stats
sorry.
of your fantasy team and
But-
then you win and
Aren't there other ones where it's like
simulations.
Yeah, stat
100%.
based simulations. I think so,
100%.
and you can actually bet on them.
Yeah,
That's right.
stat versus stat. Oh god. No, I don't know. I don't know. I don't like where, and this isn't just people yelling into the abyss, but there is something problematic about if we rely on statistics, we lose the ability to feel. I think that's the sort of the message that we've all been coming back to again and again, whether it's, Erik in his sleep or if it's. Why do I?
He wants me to throw something at him.
If it's Erik and
I'm
his
gonna
delusional
I'm gonna
watch.
let this warm up and then sneak up.
So
on
explain
you
to
with
me
it.
again. So the watch is the pillow? Is that?
Yeah.
So Erik sleeps on this watch that is
I'm
the
gonna
size
heat
of a
this
pillow.
up and then slap you with it, and then it's gonna not only hurt, but it's gonna burn your face.
So the watch, the watch wakes
That
up
was
and
graphic,
says,
eh?
the watch wakes up and says, "Erik, it's time for bed."
Yeah.
And you sleep.
The watch wakes up.
The watch tells
Oh,
you.
the watch sleeps. I wonder, does the watch get stats on its sleep?
Does the watch rub your back?
Well, it can.
Is the watch physically attractive?
Do you find it attractive?
You should see the box the watch came in.
Whoa!
Oh.
I don't like the way that
box.
was. I don't like. Oop, that's not okay. I think on that note, I think it's time to wrap this up.
That's right.
So statistics are useful tools, but nobody should draw conclusions from them, or be careful about the conclusions you draw from these statistics. They're not telling you the whole picture. In games, there can be useful tools at the end. Maybe team stats are a better way to go because they take the focus off the individual, especially young players who are still developing, vulnerable, and perhaps practice. Eliminate all practice statistics so your players feel safe enough to take risks, be aggressive, play aggressively without fear.
Yeah, keep them
thinking
private. If you're a good coach and you're working on technical development, keep it amongst you and your assistant coaches. And then if anything, that's how you can track your own success as a coach. It's like, hey, this person was passing this well at the beginning of the year. Now they're doing this. I think we can give ourselves credit.
If you're still,
But you don't even need to do that because you'll actually know if they're passing better. So
Yeah,
it just goes
see,
back to this
I
whole
don't-
thing. We keep trying to put it in boxes where you just.
Yeah, I don't think a coach should give themselves credit
Yeah.
based on the number goes up because the same variables
Yeah.
exist. Like again, to go back to, sorry, I don't want to go on
I
again.
hit
but-
my mic if you didn't.
well, I had the literacy test in schools when I was teaching.
Did you
right?
pass?
So I did not. I did not. I was illiterate, but anyway, but that's the key. So the literacy test. So every year in schools, our staff would clap if the numbers went up, and they would get all upset if the numbers went down. And I was like, so
I love the voices.
yeah. So I used to look around the staff room and I was like, where are all the science teachers? Because can you tell everybody that there's different kids taking the test? It's a different. No, it's a different test every year. It's you guys are laughing, but I was the only person in the room. I was like in the twilight zone here. So different kids take the test. It's a different test every year. And the marking criteria goes up or down based on what the government wants the numbers to say, right? They'll hold up. I've been in these rooms. They'll say, "This is what we want. This is the highest level this year, guys." So okay, and then they're like, "Oh, look at how well we're doing in education." And then they're like, "Oh, look at how bad education is. We need to fix it." That's what they would use. They would use the test as a funding tool.
A lot of these teachers would,
and these teachers were sitting. So I would put up my hand, like, I'd be like, so. Everybody, like, why are we celebrating or commiserating?
So you're an antagonizer.
I'm an idealist. I'm a revolutionary. And I said, I was screaming in Spanish, and I said,
Give us a little.
"Hasta la victoria siempre." No, sorry, that's too radical for the internet. But no, I was saying that means until victory always. But anyway,
I thought it was like a Harry Potter spell.
oh no, Harry Potter.
Yeah,
No.
give us your best Harry Potter in
What is
Spanish.
it? What's
Which
the,
one?
what's
Harry
the
Potter in
death
Spanish?
Curse? What's
Yeah.
the death curse?
Wingardium. No, that's that when.
It's
Avada Kedavra.
Yeah,
That's
that's
it,
it.
yeah.
It sounds like abracadabra.
Avada Kedavra. Yeah,
That's
the
loud,
death-
man.
It's forbidden.
And scary.
Yep. Anyway, so
forbidden.
I was the only one talking about these stats, and they were like, I was like, where are the science teachers? Can you explain to them what a controlled experiment is? And they're just like, nope, we just want to go home, Zuby.
Yeah, that would be the.
That was the response.
Oh,
we just want to go home.
We'll get our paycheck. We don't care about this.
We don't care. And the data, they were all just celebrating. Woo, literacy test numbers are up. Woo. And I'm like, oh, literacy test numbers are down. And I'm like, oh, we're bad. So it's like.
So wait, all the teachers, or what about or just the English teachers?
No, the whole team. No, because there's a whole other topic. No, it was all the school wide. The whole school was like, everybody tries to get the number to go up. Everybody tries to get the number.
Math teachers like, oh, darn.
No, because every department has to do literacy tests. Like they literally, you know what they did? They made us cover up the posters on the wall during the literacy test. I was like, what? So if there's advice on the wall, let's suppose there was an essay writing advice on the wall, and some kid looks up there and learns how to write an essay because they actually cheated.
Or it's the first time they looked at it all year.
Yeah. First time they looked at it all year. Let's suppose it, but but they wanted all words covered up, not just writing advice, by the way. Okay, that's how idiotic we were about statistics, about this number. And anyway, so if a kid looks up on the wall, learns how to write a paragraph, and then does it well on this literacy test, you don't want that to happen.
Yeah, right.
No, we don't. We want to punish them. Stupid shit. Like, that's why. Anyway, so it's this obsession with data is making everybody feel that they're successful or a failure when the data is nothing that you can use to draw a conclusion.
It cuts off the creative. Sorry, say that again. I cut you off.
No, I was just saying, it's just people are drawing conclusions from stats, and they never tell a picture. They tell something, but 9 times out of 10, I would say almost 10 times out of 10, you as a human interpreting these numbers are going off in a different direction, probably, bringing your own projections and, your own biases to things, right? Like maybe, player you don't like, look at that number.
Yeah.
Or, oh, of course that's happening. And again, you're not looking, you have to be really knowledgeable, right? Like that's the one thing I learned just going back to the very top of the show. That guy who was a statistician, it was like one of those life-changing presentations where I saw, I was like, yeah, statistics are, I was very young, and statistics aren't conclusions.
And this is coming from a statistician.
This was coming from a guy, and he was he was retiring, by the way, from this job. And he was like, so the new person coming in was not
he's free to say
no, sorry, he wasn't what I mean is he had that wisdom, right, that a young person coming into the job might not have, because they're being pushed by the people above them to meet this number, meet that number, and those numbers don't mean anything. So that's what's happening. Sadly, sport used to be a little free from that. Sport used to be the place where people could take risks and go for it, but it's slowly slipping into this corporate data feeling world of measuring. Think about this, guys, right? We're measuring little kids' sports now.
Yeah.
Think about how fucking gross that is. And we're telling them the statistics. Oh, you mean little Timmy? Little Timmy, who's 14 now, is going to have to worry about his passing stats? He wants to get out of fucking math class and come play sport and go nuts and learn how to fucking hit a ball.
Yeah.
And now you're going to tell Timmy, whoa, Timmy, see this number right here? Let's keep that shit out of junior sports. Bring it into pro sports all you want, where it's a career. But let's not let little kids' lives be dragged into this abyss of God-forsaken ugly charts and graphs. Like, can you imagine going to volleyball practice? That's where we're at now, right? Volleyball practice. All right, I got a pie graph. Like, oh, I thought can we play yet? Not yet.
Yeah.
I got a new. I was gonna say watch, but I didn't mean to.
It's okay.
It's one of those. We can't say watches anymore.
Oh boy! I mean, even when we go up for a swing, a decision, spiking a ball, it's based on how the experience. It's not based on going up. Okay, I'm gonna hit this ball. Percentage wise, I should hit line, or should I hit?
Shouldn't have a damn thing in your head, right? Like the whole reason we play sports is to get away from that world, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Words can't define like that whole action. Like or thought, and then we tend to think in words, right? So, limiting.
It's taking over our lives, right? Statistics, data. It'd be cool if we could leave kids sports. If you want to do games, that's great. But it would be really cool if we could leave kids sports pure and teach them how to feel the same way we got to learn. And they're not getting the right to learn that, right? That's one thing too. Kids really learn a lot. Like we run some youth fours leagues, and we don't. And parents always want us to coach more.
It's different. Yeah.
Yeah, but you see them; they trial and error very fast,
Yeah,
almost as fast
that's
as
what
if
I
we
mean.
instruct them. It's kind of crazy
Well, yeah.
because they watch another kid be successful.
They'll learn some things a lot quicker in that format than they would in coaching, for sure.
Yeah. You like we talked about that early on one of the episodes, but interference. We interfere a lot.
Yeah.
So, and one of the hard things to do is to sit back and watch these kids get aced 3 times, but then they notice, okay, I'm too deep. They move up. They pass the next one.
Yeah, that's what the coach is for.
Well, that's what sort of. But isn't it cool when there's no coach there and the player does it on their own?
And that's also going to be the opportunity, whether it be a coach or, like I've always advocated, watching video, see how it's done, see yourself away from the play and say, oh, wait a second, I was way too deep. What was I thinking?
Yes. Yeah. Watch yourself. Yeah. And that's not data. That's not a statistic.
Yeah.
That's just observation, and it
Observation
gets that feel again. You learn feel by seeing yourself. I agree. That's a huge one.
And it may not be fixed. Like if they get aced one serve, it doesn't mean they're gonna have a great pass on the next serve. They might get aced again, but maybe they're just making small incremental changes or something. So then, again, hopefully at some point there is some change.
They will.
I know it's not exactly. It's not. I hope it will. It will. Happen.
Like I've never seen a player just stand in the same place and get aced 8 times in a row. Maybe at the adult level.
Maybe. Yeah.
I'll say it again too. If you want to do something for your kids, tape games, tape practices, and then you can both.
Meach, you know that it's now digital recording. Nobody's walking around with tape, right? Like I just want.
Shoot.
It's
digitally record.
Yes. Meach is living in the year 1986. Tape. Videotape.
Meach does the reformatting because these are all on VHS.
Yes.
And he formats it into digital, and then you upload it.
Yeah,
it takes like 3 weeks.
It takes a long
make
time.
it into a classic.
Yeah, we made these episodes in 1984.
Yeah,
and Meach is taking them from his. This is being recorded on a VHS, a JVC, giant JVC recording VHS beta. Nobody knows what beta is. Eric probably doesn't know what beta is.
You don't even know what Super 8 is.
So I know what Super 8 is.
No, you don't.
Yes, I do. It's a hotel chain. Okay.
Oh, it is.
All right. And cut.
All right, guys. That was another great show. And
What?
yeah,
Was it?
I think it was.
Statistically
Until you
speaking?
lost it.
Well, I'd like to see the
Check
stats.
your watch. Let's see how good. Too soon.
What's the big idea?